There are some conversations that just hit different. And this is one of them. Because my guest today, Jon Giganti, he and I share something pretty special. We're both graduates of Heroic Public Speaking, Grad 19, which means we've both done the deep work, the kind that asks you to really look at who you are and how you show up. And that's exactly what this conversation is about. We talk about what happens when your identity is tied to performance, whether that's in sports, on stage, or in life. The pressure to be perfect, the fear of failure, and what it takes to untangle who you are from what you do. Jon shares his journey as an athlete and how learning to embrace vulnerability, especially as a man, changed everything. Not just in how he performs, but in how he connects. This one is honest, it's reflective, and it might just have you thinking a little differently about your own story. Here we go. Today's a special day. I got my good friend Jon Giganti here, and I just can't wait to get into this. We go back a little ways, had a lot of cool speaker experiences together at Heroic Public Speaking. And it is just such an honor to have him here today. So let's get to it. Welcome, Jon. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do and also what form of athlete you identify as?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so Jon Giganti, I live in Columbus, Ohio, born and raised in Cleveland, just up the street a couple hours, and I did a few years in Chicago in my 20s, and then met a girl from here visiting a friend, and ended up marrying her and moving here. I've been here for about 20 years or so. What do? I build into humans, I like to say. I love developing people. I love to see people reaching their potential. And so I spent about 25 years in corporate tech sales and just couldn't shake the itch to scale the impact I wanted to make. And I met you at Heroic Public Speaking. So I wrote a book a few years ago called With Intention, and I started to speak quite a bit and loved it, fell in love with the work. And I just felt this call to kind of break free and build my own company. A few months ago, I decided to leave this 25-year deal, and it's called Giganti Group now. So it's a coaching and leadership development firm. So I get to speak and get to coach, and you're obviously one of the, I would say, influences for me. You've helped me a lot in the facilitation game, and I'm learning so much in that. I just did a workshop last week for 40 leaders in Dallas. I've got another one next week, a smaller group here in Columbus, and I'm fascinated with that work. It's very different from keynote speaking. And I love keynote speaking, but to create the right environment for people to learn and grow and connect, to me, there's an art and a science to it. And I feel like I'm very early stage and learning everything I can to try to get better.
Oh, you're a natural. First off, the Giganti Group, you got the coolest company name in existence. That alone is just cool. It's fun to say as well. And then you went quickly past your book, but you wrote a really incredible book, With Intention. We'll make sure to link that in the show notes.
Thank you.
I love that that's the title of your book too. And I have a copy of your book and I get a signed one. Yes. When I met you, I remember we were at dinner and you came along and I'm like, who's this guy? Sales guy. But nicest person with the calmest demeanor on the face of the earth. And you have been just such a support to me and such a good friend. And it was immediately after that dinner that I'm like, Jon's going to be one of the guys that I hope to be in contact with for the rest of my life.
Oh, very sweet. Thank you, Kassy. Feeling was mutual. Remember us both actually struggling a little bit on stage during some of the rehearsal stuff. And I sat there watching you, and I'm like, and not to take anything away from anybody that we're there with 30, 40 people. I feel like you're such a natural, and it's just a real person. You're so authentic, and it comes across in everything you do. So, thank you for your kind words. But I think there's some synergy there in how we aspire to show up in the world.
Yeah, isn't it neat? Thank you for that.
Yeah,
thank you.
Of course.
I like that about myself, that it's hard for me to fake it.
Yeah.
And what you see is what you get with me. And sometimes I'm like, why did I get that out there? But whatever. And you know what you bring to the table is immediately people walk away going, man, that dude's a good dude. Like you are just 100% with intention. Your book title is perfect for how you live your life. Like you are a good guy. So
Thank you. That means the world. Thank you.
yeah, it's just true. And it's so awesome to meet a man like that. So love it. You and your wonderful family too. I have the honor of meeting your wife, Michelle, who's
Yeah.
incredible as well. She's as sparkly as you are kind and good.
It's so funny you said thank you. I'll pass that on. She's such an extrovert. And it's funny because I kind of consider myself an extrovert. You know, you take all these assessments and I pretty much show up as an extrovert and live the sales life and everything else, but I am nothing compared to her. She will light up every room she's in. And this is so funny. We were laughing. My daughter is a junior in high school and went to prom over the weekend.
I
And they're
saw
very
those pictures.
okay.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, they're very similar. But we found out after the fact, our neighbor is the dean of students at the school, good friend of ours. And apparently my daughter was crowd surfing at the prom and they had to like bring her down. She's pretty petite. And so someone threw her up. And I mean, it's just so funny because like my wife would be the one that's crowd surfing.
Would crowd surf.
And yeah,
That's funny.
I call her the mayor because anytime we go to dinner or lunch anywhere, it's like she knows 6 people. And, you know, we've lived in this town for 20 years and I know maybe
Yeah.
2 of those people. I'm like, how do you know that? Oh, we used to do this and, you know, dance class or whatever for the kids. And yeah.
That's incredible. That's really cool. You have
Yeah.
a gorgeous family.
Thank
Love
you
it.
so much.
Yeah. Does your daughter know that you know she crowd surfed?
Yes, she knows.
Okay.
Yes, we laughed about it. She's a spitfire. She's beautiful. She's awesome. Very high energy. So yes, so I've got, and it's funny because I have a 18-year-old, 17-year-old, 12-year-old. My 18-year-old son, and then my daughter is gay. My daughter Reese is 16, almost 7. She's a crowd surfer. And my daughter Emerson's 12. My son and oldest son, only son, and youngest daughter, they're kind of like me a little bit, probably more low key, read the room, let's wait to see, let's feel, you know, because I think I am extroverted once I feel comfortable, but I tend to sit back a little bit and, you know, observe and ask questions and those sorts of things.
Yeah, that tracks actually. I
Yeah.
remember when we were at Heroic, I didn't meet you on the first day,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's because I think, yeah, like you said, you sit back and then there you are. And I get that. It tracks really accurate. But once
Yeah.
you're all in.
Right.
And, you know, another thing that stands out for me, and I do want to talk about, because I know you to be a runner and also a soccer player. I know that you've done that too, because you talk about that. And so this is one of the things that is interesting. There's a lot of things that are interesting to me, but about you. But one thing, when I've seen you speaking, you have an incredible ability to be so completely raw and vulnerable. And it is something that we almost expect from women. And when men do it, we're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
I remember the stories that you've shared and the way that you show up in the world. You are very open and vulnerable, and it is incredible. And I'm just wondering if you could talk about that. And also, you got to tell us about the athlete too. And like, is any of that stuff the strength that you have? You know, what is? Let's talk about that. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't answer your initial question. I apologize. So yes, I grew
No,
up playing all sports, and I'll just kind of go and you can tell me to stop or shut up or.
you're fine.
And it's funny because we were talking before we got on about this mafia show, what you call Five Families on Netflix.
Something like that. Yeah. I was like, are you part of the Giganti family? But we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't think so. But my dad came over when he was 6 from Italy. So through Ellis Island in New York. And so, you know, one of these stories where the family comes and lives in the attic with like 2 other families in Cleveland, I mean, it's the American dream, right? And so my grandpa, Mario, by the way, he was like the elevator guy at the terminal tower in Cleveland. You know, I don't know how much money he was making, but he worked this very blue collar job. My dad was the first one to go to college in his family. My mom actually as well was the first one, also Italian family. But my dad wrestled in college and then became a wrestling coach afterwards and a college professor. So I grew up in this very like sports driven family. Education too was super important. Both my parents were teachers. But myself and my 2 older brothers all played collegiate sports. So my oldest was a soccer player. My middle was a football player, and I played soccer. But we played everything growing up. So sports was like the identity, maybe to a fault. actually, and that's part of the story. So I settled on soccer once I got into high school, and it was, one of these things where you get pretty good at something because you're surrounded by it. I mean, by the time I was 3 years old, I was playing and going to all my brother's games, everything else. It was just very natural to me. And then I got pretty good at it. So then I got around good coaches and everything else. And next thing you know, it's like, oh my gosh, I want to play professionally and this is my dream. And all that. I actually, it's interesting. I talk a lot about perfection, and I always wanted to be perfect when I played, and I was very hard on myself. But I again was playing at a pretty high level. But my team, I transferred high schools. This is what is a little bit crazy looking back. Soccer's not a big revenue producing sport. It's better now, but certainly 25, 30 years ago wasn't. My family moved for me to play at a different high school. That's
Oh,
how,
wow.
which is amazing. Like, what a loving thing to do. They were like, we want you to have the best experience. We moved, and I was fortunate to play on two high school state championship teams. One of them that was 22-0, so we won our second state titles, and kind of this perfection tendency was continued to play out. And I actually went to college with three of my high school teammates, which is very rare. But we all decided, a school called Bowling Green in Ohio, so Division I, pretty high level. And I wanted to play pro ball. I felt like I was good enough, and had a pretty decent freshman year, earned a starting spot my sophomore year. But there was a lot of personal baggage, personal stuff that was rooting that I never really took care of. And it's my parents split up in between my freshman and sophomore year, got in a big fight. But it goes way back, actually, a few years before, which again, I talk a lot about mental health because I've lived it. So my dad went away to the hospital when I was in fifth grade, had a nervous breakdown, and came back, and we just never talked about it because it was, again, this proud Italian roots. You just kind of move on, and not that anything, I don't recall, like, there was some tension in the house, but not. I mean, I lived a great childhood. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I came home from school my freshman year of college, and my parents get in this huge fight. Money was always kind of a big thing, and thankfully I was there and broke it up. But their marriage was over. Well, I went back to school, and I didn't say anything to anybody. I just grinded away. I kept training. I earned a starting spot, but I was not could kind of feel my head going a little bit, where I just didn't have the same grit, or there were just certain things that would kind of hold me back. And I bring up the perfection thing because I could feel it out. Like, I would have, if I had a good first touch in a game, I would have a great game. And if I had a bad first touch, I would just get in just all these little gremlins started popping up. Like, you're not good
Mm.
enough. And it's a high performing environment. So those little edges matter. So I went from, there was one tournament where I was MVP of the tournament. So I had the potential to play at that level, but I was so up and down the rest of my career to the point where I literally was coming off the bench my senior year and just, I didn't make it, where I didn't make it to the pro level. And it was because it was my identity. It was I went through a pretty big, just depression and anxiety and all this, you turn to drugs and alcohol, and you start numbing the pain with all this stuff. And it took me many years I actually hated soccer for a long, long time. And
Mm.
I was on a mission trip with my family in our church maybe 10 years or so ago. And I remember kicking a ball with a kid who didn't speak English. And it, like, brought me back because I'm like, this is
Yeah.
the world's game, and this is amazing. I can communicate with this kid just by passing a soccer ball with him. And there's a whole faith story to, me, not having my identity in a ball. There's a higher purpose in life. So there was I bring that up because it's real, and I try to be as authentic as possible because I am an athlete. I am proud of the journey, but it was also like with my kids, the last thing I want is their identity to be in a ball or a sport. And so we're very intentional about faith and other things. Just how can you serve other people, and how can you show up in the world in a bigger way? So yeah, like, sports is amazing. I'm all for it. It teaches us so many lessons, but I
It
try
does.
not to chase it as
There's that
part.
other side. Like you said, this is an interesting
Yeah,
phrase I haven't really thought about before, but your identity in the ball, is that what you said?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, because and you almost have to, right? You have to be elite, and to make it at the top levels. You've got to be all in, which
Yeah.
I get, and it's just, there's a dark side to it. I mean, you hear about it all the time, and NFL and NBA, all these guys who that's their identity when they're pros, and then they retire. And a lot of people struggle with it because it's just
Yeah.
under the bright lights and competing all the time. It becomes hard.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can. You do see that a lot, and you see people trying to find their way with
Yeah,
who am I now? And because of what it takes too, and you start at such a young age to be
yeah,
able to be at those levels. Those people started so young, their
right.
whole life.
Sorry, I
And
went off the deep end on it a little bit, probably too much, but I wanted to give the
no, no, it's not. It's not. It's like I'm curious about like how did you get to the point where you're able to be vulnerable and talk about it?
yeah,
Because I know I've heard you talk about the perfectionism, which maybe was driven through growing up as an athlete. That
yeah,
probably came a little bit there, but then there's also this part of hiding what was really going on mentally and
sure.
emotionally that probably drove some of that. But what was the switch, and how did you figure that out?
Yeah, the other piece of the story is, and that we met each other in a speaking class. I was a speech champion in high school, my freshman year of high school, and I thought I was already too good, right? So I never really worked at it. And I remember like leading up, we did this competition at my high school where everybody had to give a speech. Out of 230 kids, I won the speech, and my teacher pulled me and my mom aside. I was like, I think he's got a chance to be the first four-time champion.
Wow,
So I'm like, oh, my doesn't stink. I can send more. Well,
not vulnerable back then.
no, I mean, there's an arrogance there, right? So I got into the sales world once I moved to Chicago and started my career and had some pretty good success early on. Well, all this crap that I never dealt with, and I was on the side. I'm going to therapy and trying to like figure some of this stuff out, but I would never say anything to anybody. Like this was kryptonite if anybody knew I was dealing with this stuff. I was very good at putting on a happy face. I started to have panic attacks speaking. That's how bad this got. So I would be in a sales presentation and I would kind of feel this, my hands would go tingly and I'd feel this like warmth and I'd lose track of my thoughts. And, maybe there's a little bit of that perfectionism come out too. But it got to the point I was pretty good at, I was figuring it out. I remember one time leaving the room and going to get a drink of water. So it never really, there were a few moments where it was getting there, but I was able to hold it off. And then I got to the point during a meeting in Chicago where I didn't. And I was actually seeing a therapist at the time, and he's like, "Jon, just fake a headache if this happens." And I'm like, "Dude, I can't, like this is high stakes
Yeah.
stuff."
Yeah.
And it happened. I faked a headache. I went up to my hotel room. It was an internal meeting in Chicago, and it was very embarrassing. And it took me. I didn't even tell anybody what happened. I said like I just wasn't feeling good, whatever. But I knew something had to change, something had to shift, and all this baggage that I was carrying. I always say it's like garbage. Like, you got to take your trash out. I never was taking my trash out, even though I was going to get therapy. I wasn't open about anything, and so I finally opened up a little bit more to my wife. I finally found what I feel like is the right therapist, and there is a faith component, at least for me. I'm a Christian, and I went down that path to figure out like I grew up a Catholic kid, but never really read the Bible, and actually read a passage in the Bible. It's in Second Corinthians, and regardless of religion or faith beliefs, I think it's important for anybody to talk about this. It's Paul asked Jesus to remove a thorn from his side, and Jesus says, "No, my power is made perfect in weakness, and when you are weak, then you are strong." And that was a huge thing for me to read and just understand like what if I didn't run away from this whole thing,
Mm,
this whole story? What if I actually used it for good and used it to help others? Like
I see.
what if that was what for me God was calling me to be? And so honestly, I got invited to speak to a couple sports teams early on, and I started to just, share the story a little bit and realize like, oh my gosh, this is a way to connect with people. Me showing it, because a lot of people show up and speak, and it's hustle, and I wake up at 4 a.m. and I do this, and you got to grind. It's like that's all well and good, but it's like I kind of show up and say, let me tell you where I failed, but also what I've done to build back. And so, and the other pieces of that too are important. It's like I finally got the training to speak better. So I went to Toastmasters every week for 2 years and I needed to rebuild my confidence. So I did that. And I just started doing the reps. I volunteered for a nonprofit and emceed an event. And I started to do it all scared. Right. So there's a lot of scar tissue there. And frankly, there still is sometimes.
I know. I'm always scared, but I always say that
Yeah,
the pain of being in the audience and not doing it is greater than the fear of pushing through it and doing it.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
always
so true.
level of anxiety is in existence, and is it because I'm not or because I am? And I would rather choose because I am.
I love that. Yes. Still for me, it's gotten better, but it's always once you're a minute into it, I feel like I'm good. And actually, so Michael Porter, who we both trained under, he gave me some great advice when I was going through that class. He said, John, at the end of the day, be helpful, not good.
Yeah, I love that. I remember him giving that too. I
Remember
love that.
that? That
I love
unlocked
that.
me because I'm like, now even all these, anytime I speak or facilitate anything, I always lean back on that, like, because I over prepare. Again, I try to, that's a perfectionist thing, and it's always stressful. And I'm like, all right, remember, just be helpful,
Yeah.
serve the audience.
I know every time I've ever planned something and it went perfectly, I'm like, "Did you love that?" And they were like, "What?" What they loved was when nothing worked and we still
Yeah.
figured it out and we all laughed about it. I'm like, "That's what you loved the best? Okay."
So true, though. Yes, the real human moments. People want
Yeah.
that human connection, and they don't want it. They don't need it to be perfect.
I know, but it's like, I don't know, like, I love the phrase perfectly imperfect. I do
Yeah.
love that, but what we have to get to be able to deliver, well, I think there's all the, like, sales and marketing so that we can even get to the space, and then once you get there, you kinda can't be too
Yeah.
you can't be imperfect the whole time or they won't bring you back. You know, there's, like, this balance with but it is true
Good
that
point.
the audience responds to the stuff that was the mess.
Yeah.
I remember watching a keynote, Matthew McConaughey, he's awesome, of course.
So good. Yeah.
Um, and he talked about this. He's like, "People don't care. They already know that you're there. They don't wanna hear about all the great things that got you there. They wanna hear about the mess that you had to deal with, and that's the part where they see themselves being like, 'Maybe someday I can get there too.'"
Yeah.
It was quite insightful, you know?
I love that, and that's one of my core messages for people is how do you use your failures in life for good? It really
Yeah,
can become fuel, and it's way easier said than done. This stuff's not,
way.
and it's not that I'm perfect at it. I struggle with it too, but it's like, how do you? I don't know. We always want to present ourselves in a perfect way, right? It's this
We
whole
do.
social media. We show our highlight reel and whatever, right? It's like I don't know. If we all just showed a little bit more of the authentic stuff and real stuff, it's
Do you think if we had our low light reel that we would get hired for the next gig?
yeah,
I don't think we would though, John.
yeah, yeah. No, I get it.
I've never thought about this before, but now do we need to make low light reels
I know, right?
in
Blooper
the
reel.
effort to be more authentic? Here's my low lights.
Yeah, yeah.
I've
You
never
know,
thought about
one
that
of my
before, but
one of the I put a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, and one of my most popular posts ever is a picture of my family. We were getting family pictures, and it was like the unpolished version where I was trying to get my daughter on my shoulder, and she was falling off, and her hand was on my face, and I'm like, everybody loved that.
everyone loves that. That
It's real.
reminds me of the one that I have of my kid with Santa
Yeah,
when they were little, and it's of him flying off of Santa's lap screaming.
yeah, right.
It is
That's
my favorite photo. Like
yeah.
we knew then that Santa wasn't going to be a thing in the house.
Uh,
It's so funny.
it's so funny. Yeah, low light. I like that low light roast. That, but you're right. And will that get us hired? I don't know. Maybe it would actually if we were that human.
Yeah. Hey, if any speaker videographers are out there, you put speaker reels together. Hey, let's consider a low light, like a low light reel, and with the purpose being to display authenticity and what it's really like. But then I don't know. It's got to be done right because even that's got to
No,
be done in a highlight kind of way because we got to be able to capture the beauty of the low light of the fail, not the I hire you and the whole thing is a fail because that's not the message we would want to send.
you know what I've done a couple times in videos I've recorded is like if there are other takes and bloopers, you do the main one, but then at the end you do the kind of a blooper scene, and
I
it
guess that's
shows.
what it is. The low light reel is a blooper reel, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess that's been done. Now I want one though. That'd be funny. I want my own blooper reel. Are there things that are left over? Some heavy stuff from
yeah.
your time as an athlete, of course, and the perfectionism that came from that. But do you find that today, as you prepare to deliver a workshop, prepare to speak or take the stage, are there things that come from your time as a soccer player that you build into that process?
Sure. Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, my preparation now, especially day of, when I can, it's literally probably 3 hours of prep work before. So if I'm given a 9 hour, or if I'm on at 9 a.m., let's call it, I'm usually up by 5 or 5:30, and I work out, do some meditation, some prayer, some yoga, some stuff we learned at Heroic Public Speaking. Beating getting your vocal
Yes.
stuff
Run
going.
around in place, all the vocal warm-ups. Totally.
Yes, all that stuff. Yeah, which is very reminiscent of prepping for a game, right? And what's interesting is that, before, if you ever watched like a soccer game or really any sport, I remember, the national anthem's playing, and if you watch someone in a game, they're shaking their legs out, they're kind of getting ready because there's nervous energy. It's just part of the deal. Well, can't always do that before a talk. Someone's introducing you and you're just sitting there, unless you're back in the green room jumping up and down, or doing whatever. So
Yeah, being weird in the green room.
yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think. How about you? Do you have a routine that you follow?
For sure. I don't know that it's like routine and that's exactly the same, but it is more physical focused than it is mentally focused in the moments before I take the stage, for sure.
Yeah,
The mental focus is all the build up always, but in the moment before going live, and even actually even today before our our podcast interview,
yeah.
running like I went up and down the hall, and I'm like,
Did you really?
doing those things, had the water, do it was more physical. And so sometimes I have to like, okay, I'm here. All right, hi, and those are the things that I'll do for sure. And I think that people who are athletic, they lean into that a whole lot more than people who don't do that or don't come from that. Like it's more of a normal practice for people who have played sports than it is for those of us that didn't grow up playing sports.
Yeah,
Like I had to learn it. And I learned it through the theater and I learned it through performance.
sure.
But I think I've become more confident with it in the last several years because of leaning into the gym as much as I go to the gym a lot more than I ever did when I was a kid. Let's be honest, I never went when I was young, but I go all the time now. I'm like a gym rat now and I'm proud of it. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love the weights. I love the tread. I love all of it.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
know what I found value into? I have one of those rebounders, which is like a mini trampoline. That's
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
amazing to get your blood going and
Yeah, what a
learn.
great idea. I should get one of those. What a great
Yeah,
idea for the house and for prepping when especially for an online event or anything.
yeah,
Yeah, I
for
mean,
sure.
obviously not traveling with it, but having it in the house. Goodness.
Yes.
I need one now.
Yeah. I learned
Any
that
day.
Tony Robbins, I was on one of his events, just some training, and he's got one of those. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I bought one. It was well worth the investment.
Yeah, I should get one. Hopefully he wasn't doing that while he was on camera. That would be
No, hey, backstage, he's got one though. And he's jumping up and down on it before he goes out. Yeah.
there is a 100% guarantee that I will not be doing that on camera.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I can see why that would really work. That's cool.
Yeah. Something with getting your heart rate up. And actually, a lot of my book I wrote on a Peloton bike and I spoke it into Otter. And I had my
Yeah.
table of contents up, like, as I was just more of a talker than a writer, I would say. And just there is an element of having an elevated heart rate, I think, that
Yeah.
gets our brains and our bodies connected.
It does connect. Yeah. We were talking about that in another recent guest that I had about when you get into it's not mindless, routine. When you
Yeah.
have that routine and your body is doing something, what it does is it frees up the mind to then be more creative.
Yes.
So it's really, really common that that happens for people. And I had mentioned that a lot of times when I'm coming home from the gym, it's when I'm talking into my
Yeah.
phone. I'm doing a voice recorder and I'm like, oh, I got an idea for the newsletter. Let's record this right now while I'm driving, and then
Right.
get home and develop it later. But it comes out right after being on the tread.
For sure. I rehearse a lot walking. It's
Yes.
if I have a script or something, and I'll just walk and talk, and gotta be careful where you do it. You don't want a lot of people around judging
Yeah.
you like, "There's that crazy guy walking
As a
around."
person talking to nobody.
But there is something to that for sure. I think it's more sticky for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like you probably leaned into it right away and knew it was true because you had this background as an athlete.
Yeah.
Do you play soccer now? Oh, I stopped you.
No, you're good. I was gonna say something on flow state, but I do play a little bit. I coach a little bit too, which is fun, just with the kids, and I miss it though. I don't play enough, and my body doesn't hold up as well.
Your body doesn't like it. What were you gonna say about flow state? Let's go back to that.
Yeah, just well, it's a sports thing, right? So flow state is where challenge meets skill, right? So I'm just fascinated by it because I lived it as an athlete, and then there are moments and I would say when I was in the sales world, I could feel it, and even now, it's I'm coaching or speaking or whatever. You feel when the energy in the room, when it's like time stands still. The guy there, there's a great book, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Don't ask me to spell that, but I believe that's how it's pronounced. He's a former deceased now, but was a professor at the University of Chicago. Wrote a book called Flow and did all the research on this. And it's this whole idea of so you got to do something that challenges you, and you got to have at least enough skill to do it, and that's where like you're in the zone of genius or whatever you want to call it. So I'm always searching for that. I'm always trying to figure out. And I think that's where like the preparation for a workshop or a speaking engagement or a coaching call, whatever it is, it's do the work, but then let it fly. So trust that you've done the work and prepared, but then that for me, the flow state's letting it fly. So anytime I'm working with any individual or team, I'd always talk about, how do we get there more often?
Yeah. Do the work and then let it fly.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Is there something that you could teach us? Because you said that's where you like to let it fly. You like to get to the let it fly. Like like your favorite go-to that would be in the do the work space, but then
Yeah.
lets you go to the let it fly place?
Yeah. So I I think of this as there's a concept that I talk about called choice moments. And so if you think about it, we have stimulus that happens to us. Something happens and we usually tell ourselves a story, right? And then we respond and we get a result. So what I call the choice moment is that in between the story and the response, we all get a choice we get to make every day, every moment, many times a day. And all my learnings, I would say, through good and bad, I feel like this is the ultimate learning for me of this. How do you press pause enough so you don't overreact? And by the way, I struggle with this. That's why I talk about it, because I'm really good at, as I'm building this business, there's many times where it's like pressure is the stimulus that's coming in. I tell myself a story. I'm not going to make it. I need to go get a job, whatever. But when I can actually press pause and say that's not the right story. What can I do? What can I take control? I always tell myself, what's the next action I can take that's a proactive? There's actually a soccer philosophy that's play on your front foot, which is one of my keynotes that I talk about is how do I play on my front foot more often? And that's more of a proactive approach and just, want to be forward thinking and proactive and really intentional. That's what intention is.
Yes.
So yeah, I think if we can all as humans just slow down a little bit to speed up, right? Like take advantage of those choice moments and figure out
Yeah.
what works for you, and don't always listen to those little gremlins in your head. Because again, I've dealt with it and I'm not immune to it. I deal with it all the time, but I've gotten a lot better at saying, hold on, I'm not going to listen to you today. I'm going to make this choice. And we all have that
You have the
power.
choice on what the story's going to be.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful.
Easier said than done, right? But this is the type of things when I work, especially in the business world now, everybody's moving so fast, right?
Yeah.
So you talk to an executive and you're like, you're moving fast, you're killing it, but sometimes you got to slow down a little bit. And that's the one thing I'm learning in workshops is like getting people to reflect and think. Like
Yeah.
there's magic. It can be as simple as, just giving them some time, and it's amazing what comes out.
Amazing.
Give people the space.
We do not give people processing time. We're just go,
No.
go, go. And
Yeah.
when you do that, magic, that's where the magic is living.
Right. And you
Yeah.
taught me less is more for sure. Like I always try to put too much in, and I'm getting better at pulling stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah. Less is more. It is true when you decorate cakes. That's the source of that. And more true with people and processing their learning and their experiences.
Yeah. I love it.
I could talk with you all day, John. I love
No.
it. Where can people get in touch with you and get a hold of you and connect with you and find out what you're up to next?
Yeah. So my website is just gigantigroup.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn as well. I have a free weekly newsletter that I publish every Saturday. So people can sign up there too. And yeah, would love to connect.
Perfect. We'll make sure to put those links in the show notes. And thank you. Thank you for teaching us today about playing on your front foot a bit and importantly, those choice moments. And I'm also really stuck on do the work and then let it fly.
Yeah. Thank you, Kassy. It's a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on. Thanks for how you show up. It's amazing.
Thanks, Jon. We'll see you soon.
See you.
That's your spark. Now go light something up. And hey, if this episode lit you up, share it with a friend, a fellow facilitator, or someone who needs a little more connection in their day. Be sure to follow the Spark Konnect so you don't miss what's next. We've got more brilliant voices, bold ideas, and heart-forward conversations coming your way. Until then, stay curious, stay brave, and keep showing up.